vice president this year, and working with a fantastic board. I think I know many of you already. I've been involved with Monroe County Now since we restarted the chapter in 2017 and have had various roles. And I'm just excited. Monroe County Now has been one of the things that got me through the pandemic, like just having the support of the members, as well as being able to focus on the issues that we cared about and come up with ways to address them. So I'm really excited to work with all of you.
Awesome. And then next, our treasurer, Mandy Yates.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mandy. I'm the treasurer this year. So happy to be here and super excited about this year and our new board.
Our VP of Communications, Amalia Schifris.
Hello, second time being communications. I was fundraising last year. Got involved with Now not long before the pandemic, so it's been a lot of virtual work together, but very happy to have this wonderful group be a part of.
Awesome. Our amazing Zoom keeper tonight, and also our VP of membership, Julie Hardesty.
Hi, I'm Julie Hardesty. I look like I'm in as Indiana Now, but that's just because I'm logged in so I can be host. So, but yeah, I'm membership director, and this is my second term as membership director. So if you remember last year, you probably heard from me. So if you're interested in becoming a member, I'll give you some information here pretty soon about how to do that as well. So welcome.
Thank you. And then breaking news, our amazing, incredible, I see her on, so I'm going to announce our new VP of Legislative Action, Jennifer Crosley.
Hello, I am Jennifer Crosley, and I am excited to be a part of Now again. Years ago, I was introduced to it by Miss Mandy Yates, and I left for a little bit, and I'm excited to be back. So, yay.
We're so lucky and grateful to have her, just her energy and enthusiasm. I mean, just selfishly, she's one of my favorite people in the whole world, and just to have her on her voice and her leadership, we're just so excited. So that's breaking news. We'll share our announcement tomorrow on Facebook, but thank you all for coming and joining us. It's a new year. We're changing our chapter meetings. We traditionally had them on Sundays, but especially because likely we will be meeting at Zoom at least for the next couple months. We shifted them to the last Thursday of every month from 7:30 to 8:30. So thank you so much for joining us. We do still have 2 vacancies in secretary and VP of fundraising. We're more just looking for awesome energy on the board. So if you have any interest in that, please reach out to me. I will share, or actually, Mandy, do you mind sharing the link to the agenda again? Because I think if you come in late, you might not see it in the chat, or one of the board members, if you don't mind resharing that. It has all of our contact information on there and stuff. As president, I just want to jump in really quickly. I have 3 main goals this year, and they're all in the agenda. But the first one is to work to empower a statewide network to support our reproductive rights, which is why we're here today. We realize here in Monroe County, we can't do it alone. We have enormous energy and enthusiasm and so many gifts and resources here in Monroe County, but we realize that we can't do it without our friends in Evansville, in Fort Wayne, in Valpo. We have energy all over the state, and how do we just do our part to help organize it and harness it without reinventing the wheel? We know that we can't do this alone. So that is one of the big things that our chapter and our state chapter, our state board, Mandy Yates and I also serve on the Indiana Now board, along with, I see Julie's on it, Julie Storbeck over from Northwest Indiana's chapter. She's our Indiana Now president this year. We realize that we have to be collaborative and we have to work together. Like, we are not going to get through this if we try to go at it alone. We have to bring everyone together and work within those channels. Another thing we want to keep doing is supporting local and state progressive causes and legislation aligned with our core values. And then our third one is to build a bench, right? It's like, we always see like the same faces that are tired. We're tired, and we need more people to help help us fight. And how do we do that? And how do we go out with IU and just with other people in the community? They want to help, but it's building that bench and inviting them to come participate with us. So in the next coming days, in the next, I think 2 weeks, we have some exciting meetings coming up with Women for Change. We've hosted them in the past, and they're very active in the state, and the Younger Women's Task Force of Greater Lafayette and the Indiana Task Force, Feminist Organizing and Reimagining Civic Engagement. We have exciting meetings to talk about what they're doing and how we can maybe align with them. So if anybody has any interest in joining us on those, for those meetings too, we want to open it to not just us, but just to anyone who has some interest. Please feel free to email me. It's in the agenda. And let's see. Yep. I want to make sure I get all of our benchmarks in because it's dinner time and we're so grateful to have you. And I see that Shelley's on here. So I think we can kind of jump into our amazing state senator, Shellie Yoder. We can just kind of jump into that. And that I just want to transfer to Julie for a second because we have some updates with how membership is done. If anybody wants to join us, Julie will update us on membership.
Switching over to my notes without unmuting. Hi, so I'm Julie Hardesty. I'm the membership director. And I just wanted to let you all know, if you're a current member, we are sending out reminders for membership renewal. So if your membership renewal comes up at a certain time of the year, that month, you should hear from me about how to renew. So, so pay attention for that. Membership is available on a sliding scale from $10 to $40 per year. So whatever works for you, there's no questions asked. And if you want to sign up for a new membership, if you are not currently a member, this is the membership form that we have. And you can give us your information and we will get a membership going for you. So if you're a new member, if you've joined, you are eligible for a complimentary Monroe County Now t-shirt. It looks, I don't even know if I can get this on the camera, but it looks kind of sort of like this. It's very comfy. While supplies last, we have some, we don't have a lot, I think, but we do have some in supply right now. So Mandy Yates, our treasurer, has our current supply and we will hook you up as best we can. So if you're interested, contact me or Mandy to inquire about that. And always, I think the email address for me as membership director is in the agenda, but you can always contact me if you have any membership questions. So I think that's all I need to share for today. Thank you.
This is Melinda, and I finally got in.
Welcome, Melinda. Melinda is also on our board, on our Indiana Now board. So thank you for joining us. We truly do have supporters from all around the state here with us today. So I think we presented this that we were hopefully going to get a provider in today. They were not able to join us because it is their first quarterly meeting of the year, but we're super excited to be joined by our state senator, Shellie Yoder, and our representative, Matt Pierce, who will kind of talk about what's happening in the State House. We'll have a quick Q&A, and then we'll hear from our amazing Vice President, Shruti, to talk about what happened yesterday with Justice Breyer's announcement, and also any kind of cases that we should be watching out for around reproductive justice. So we'll just kind of dive in the interest of time. So I'm just gonna do a quick bio on our state senator, Shellie Yoder, who represents Indiana Senate District 40, which encompasses the majority of Monroe County and includes Indiana University Bloomington campus. She also serves as the Assistant Minority Caucus Chair. Senator Yoder is also a mom and an educator. She's a lecturer at the Kelley School of Business and previously led nonprofit organizations related to women's healthcare. She served 7 years on the Monroe County Council and is the co-founder of the South Central Indiana Opioid Summit. Senator Yoder has been steadfastly committed to collaborative leadership in education, job training, healthcare for all, elimination of poverty, affordable housing, and community engagement to advance smart and sustainable growth and effective and responsive government. Welcome, Senator Shellie Yoder.
Hello, thank you, Natalia. It's so good to be here.
I am excited to have a chance to talk about reproductive justice and find some glimmers of hope, of light that we can talk about that have come out of this last, what's coming out right now in this current session. But we are concluding our Senate bills that we're sending over to the House. Monday, we will, or Tuesday, ultimately, we will send all of our bills over that we are going to hear from the Senate and send over to the House. And I can tell you this, we did not hear any anti-choice laws or any legislation that might restrict reproductive justice. That doesn't mean we didn't hear bills that disenfranchise people, that are sort of language grounded in othering, in devaluing peoples. We definitely heard those. And for me, it's all connected. So while I will await to hear what Matt says about what we'll be seeing that will be coming over from the House, we are not sending over any obviously stated reproductive justice bills over to the House. But we do have some pretty atrocious bills that we need your activism, your voice, and your communication to senators and leadership at the State House. From the Senate side, we were able to defeat Senate Bill 167, so that one is dead, but I know we are getting a House Bill 1134, and that's coming our way, and we're gonna band together and defeat that as well and make sure that we do a number on that. I mean, it's been interesting to see how the House has, how hard the House Democrats worked to defeat that bill. It was really remarkable, and I can't wait to hear Matt's perspective. We also, unfortunately, we worked really hard in trying to push through the Education Committee a bill that would give residential tuition to our DACA students. And we heard testimony last week, and it was to be up for a vote this week, and it was on the agenda. And the day of our meeting yesterday, when people took time off to come to the State House and give public testimony in favor, he pulled it from the agenda. And it, with people who would be directly impacted by this, will all be directly impacted by this, the good that this bill would do, the redeeming that would happen, that people would feel, the redemption of this bill, righting what Indiana hasn't been doing. It was just all taken away, and that rug was pulled out from beneath people, and it was really disheartening. So I felt like that was going to be kind of a silver lining coming out of the Education Committee, because it has been a really rough ride the last 4 weeks. But even that is gone. So we're not even sending that bill over because it was taken off the agenda. So we need you. I'm going to leave you with this. I had one of our interns come up to me and say, what are the groups in Indiana that actively help protect reproductive justice? Whose stories will we hear? Who can I turn to? And it struck me that here is I think she's a junior in college, and she did not know who are the voices, where can I go, who will be here to defend reproductive justice. And of course, I filled her in on the groups that are in Indiana, but it did concern me. We've got work to do to make sure that the next generation knows where they can feel that their rights are being protected, where they can add their voice, their activism, and their protest too. So with that, I'll be quiet. I can't wait to hear what Representative Pierce has to say. But thanks so much for being here and for inviting me to be part of this tonight.
Absolutely. And thank you for that fight. Thank you for the fight. It doesn't look easy at all. Like none of this looks, all of it just looks like a fight, every day. So with that, we will go and I will introduce our amazing State Representative Matt Pierce, who represents Indiana House District 61 and serves as the Assistant Democratic Floor Leader. He is the ranking minority member of the Indiana House Utilities, Energy, and Telecommunications Committee. He also serves on the Courts and Criminal Code Committee, the Elections and Apportionment Committee, the Rules and Legislative Procedures Committee, and the Statutory Committee on Ethics. In 1995, he was elected to represent Bloomington's 3rd District on the City Council. Representative Pierce was first elected to the Indiana House of Representatives in 2002. Welcome, Representative Pierce. Thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I hope I just don't completely depress everyone. I can tell you, as you can tell from that bio, I've been at this for a little while in the legislature, and really, this was the first day where I just pretty much sat in my chair and I said, this place has gone completely crazy. And there's like no checks or balances or anything. And so I'm probably going to bum you out with this discussion, but we got to face reality so we can get ourselves organized and keep plugging along. So today, the House passed out this bill that essentially makes it illegal for a school to allow a transgendered person to participate in women's sports, and creates these cause of action to sue the school about it. And it's just, it's just classic throwing red meat to the base. And so, I spoke out on the House floor about this, and I basically asked the House, you're putting the hand of government into every single aspect of human existence here. When are you going to live up to your ideals of being the party that claims that less government is better? But the problem that we have is first of all, we have gerrymandered districts that are lopsided, which means that the election for legislators are their primaries. There are some competitive seats left in the state, but most everything's lopsided, which means that as long as you keep your base party people happy, you'll probably be okay. And there are some pretty extreme Republicans actively out recruiting candidates against incumbent House members. And so because of this, I think what they're doing is they're trying to make sure they check every box for this kind of extreme social agenda that these extreme, people have. So, we had that transgender bill, which got passed through today. We had a so-called abortion coercion bill, which started out as a completely horrible bill. They kept cleaning it up as they went along, and they've got it down to a bill now that makes it a felony to coerce an abortion, which is not really defined. And of course, during the testimony of proponents of the bill, kind of built a narrative that suggested that if any woman had an abortion, it must be because they were being coerced by their parents, their grandparents, boyfriends. And then, of course, they tried to couch this in terms of protecting women from sex trafficking and other things. But it basically tells, abortion providers that if you even suspect that a woman may be coerced in the abortion, you have to immediately contact law enforcement. And then law enforcement must immediately investigate. So these are one of the few times we've directed law enforcement as to what their investigation priorities are going to be. And I said on the House floor that one, we already have laws in the books that are generally against intimidation, which is forcing, using threat of force to get somebody to do something against their will. So we already have law. We don't need a special, abortion coercion law. And then secondly, I thought that this was going to do real damage, real harm to women, because we've had lots of domestic violence legislation in the courts committee over the years. And what you really hear from the advocates is for a woman to be able to extricate herself from an abusive situation is you have to have lots of planning and lots of help, or it's going to end very badly. And so I think the situation where basically immediately the person who's supposedly coercing the woman is going to find out that he's been reported to law enforcement. And I think you're going to end up with retaliation and a bad outcome for the woman. And I said that on the House floor, but it didn't seem to make much of a difference. That bill's headed over to the Senate. Of course, you heard about the anti-vaccination bill, anti-mandates, and we had to sit through lots of misinformation. It was like being on social media about, how COVID's not really real and the vaccines don't really work and the testing's all false. It was crazy time there. We also passed this 1134 bill, which is essentially operating under the theory that school teachers are indoctrinating our children, and you have to have very strict guidelines about how they can discuss controversial issues, and then create these parental curricular oversight boards. And then they're taking away protections already in the law for school libraries to not be accused of having obscene content in there. So I think there's probably a full bore attack on any young adult fiction that has LGBTQ themes or transgender characters. I think that there'll be a certain vigilante group after those, and so that's not very good. We had the bill that essentially eliminates the concealed weapons gun carry permit, so everyone will just be able to enjoy carrying their guns with them without any background check to make sure they're actually not a felon or otherwise disqualified from having a gun. So, and then we got the voter suppression at the last minute. So we've got a bill that says if this were to become law, if you were to apply for an absentee ballot to vote by mail, right now, one of the reasons you can get that is to check a box that says, I expect to be out of the county on election day. Well, they're changing that law to say, I expect to be out of the county on election day, and I am unable to vote on any of the early voting days before that. And so they're really trying to eliminate as best they can voting by mail. I think it's because they know it's convenient, and they know that that increases voter turnout. When voter turnout increases, they don't do as well. And so it's just another attempt to manipulate the elections. We had a big tax cut bill in which the majority of the benefits will go to corporations and businesses and the wealthiest people in our state. That's an old theme. We tried like crazy to say, okay, if you're hell-bent on cutting taxes and taking $1 billion of revenue out of the stream coming into the state, then let's at least target it, direct it to people who need it the most. And one of the things, for example, we had was not to have sales tax on feminine hygiene products, which we've been trying to do for years now. Essentially saying, these are necessities and we shouldn't be making them more expensive. And we couldn't prevail on that. We couldn't prevail on any of our attempts to really redirect the tax cuts down to the people who really need the help most. And so I said in our Legal Women Voters Forum a couple weeks ago, what it kind of all boils down to is we've entered this situation where it's kind of all rights, no responsibilities. And it's kind of everyone's on their own now. It's not the sense of a society working together to make sure that everyone can prosper and have opportunity. It's kind of like, as the way the speaker put on a House floor when we were talking about the tax cuts is, he said people shouldn't have to pay for other people's success, which I think means that if you help people go to college and they succeed, we shouldn't have to help pay for that. So that's kind of just a few examples of the things that have got me pretty frustrated right now. So there you have it. Sorry about all the depressing news.
Well, thank you, Representative Pierce, for all you do, because you have been doing this for a while. And to hear that, it's even more depressing this year than it has been all the years before is really telling. And it makes me feel like from the other side, as like on the activist side, that we have a lot of work to do. And I will get into that. So I have a couple questions. If you have any questions and you're in the audience, please put them in the chat. I'm going to ask either Shruti or Mandy or Amalia or Jennifer, whoever wants to jump in and echo them to go ahead and do that. But we have a couple questions, and I just want to take us back to reproductive justice very quickly, because one of the things on that we've heard, there's talk about the legislature holding an emergency session to pass anti-choice legislation when maybe the Supreme Court makes a ruling. Have you heard that? It sounds like there is still a bill on the House side about the coercion bill that you talked about right now. But those are the rumors. We've also been hearing that maybe they're going to hold off a little bit until that ruling comes out. Can either one of you speak to just maybe some rumblings or rumors, just so that we can kind of figure out how to prepare ourselves best for what might be coming?
I've definitely heard this, and I feel like I read it somewhere, so I don't even think it's a rumor. I think that is that's what they're anticipating. And I believe that it's one of the reasons why we did not on the Senate side hear any anti-choice reproductive justice limiting bills, because they are anticipating this a court decision, and then we'll be hauled back to session to I guess become more restrictive in Indiana, maybe just end access, abortion access and services altogether. But I've definitely heard that, and I think I read it somewhere that that's what the governor is thinking. How about you, Matt?
Well, the speaker said, I think in his organization day speech, that they would be carefully watching the Supreme Court's actions. But he did kind of signal that they didn't really want to, try to be that cutting edge test case to get rid of Roe v. Wade, because, Texas and Mississippi are already kind of ahead of them. And so I suspect that the ruling on the current Roe v. Wade case challenging that precedent, probably going to come down in June. So at that point, we will have been out of session for a couple months. So the governor would have to call us back into session. So, we had these weird rules for a while. We could kind of just come in every time. It felt like it for a year under the theory that we had COVID and we had to do redistricting. But now we're back to kind of a little more normal rules. So, so that whether we come back for a special session to address that issue, assuming that Roe v. Wade is overruled, that's really going to be completely up to Governor Holcomb, I think. That's the way I understand the Constitution, the way the law is set up now. And I really have no doubt if the worst case happens and this, kind of Trump court literally just overturns Roe v. Wade and says it's up to the states to do whatever you want, I think that there will definitely be a complete ban on abortion in Indiana. I mean, there might be some exceptions for life and health of the mother. They might give you that concession, but I think it will pretty much be gone. And whether they feel the need to come in and do that immediately in the middle of the summer, if that were the ruling, or whether they'd be willing to wait until the next organization and the longer session to do that, I don't know. I suppose there will be maximum pressure on them from the anti-abortion forces to do it immediately. So that would probably make it more likely rather than less likely. But I don't know what the governor thinks his political future is. There's rumors that Braun's going to come back from the Senate and run for governor. That the governor may want to then run for Senate. Now, I think that the governor, quite honestly, is kind of cooked because he almost looks moderate to people, and that's not acceptable to the Republican primary base. So if the governor is thinking to himself, I just want to retire from politics now and go off and, maybe make a fortune in the corporate world somewhere, I think he might be less inclined to pull the trigger on a special session. If he thinks he's going to be running for the Senate, in a few months or something, then I think that, the next time around, a couple of years, and I think he'll definitely have to do it because he needs to get out of the primary. And those anti-abortion people, and there are some in the legislature. I mean, we've got, one guy who is just like, that is his single issue. And there's no one can be extreme enough for him in the anti-abortion world. They're always not extreme enough against abortion. So that's kind of where we are.
Just looking at that timeline, if that does happen, and you're called back to session, what is, like, how much time elapses?
Yeah, so this is another interesting thing.
Okay.
So they could suspend the rules and pass the bill in one day, in 2 hours. because they have the supermajority. They have 2/3 of the seats under the Constitution. With 2/3 vote of the House and the Senate, you can suspend the normal requirement that you have 3 separate reading days for a bill, and you can literally vote the thing through all in one shot without any hearings. Now, they might feel that that looks a little too extreme, so I would probably anticipate that what they would do is like have a committee hearing on a Monday morning, vote the bill out of committee, have the first House adopt it that afternoon. Then you would have to wait an intervening day. So a couple days later, you'd have the amendment stage on second reading. And then finally, the day after that, you would have the third and final reading for the first House. It would then go over to the second House, depending on where they started. And then you would repeat that process. So I think at most, you're talking 2 weeks to have the whole thing done.
So would you think that if the ruling comes out in June, this could all be done by July?
Yeah, I think if they call, whenever they call the legislature into session, I think the absolute longest the legislature would be in session to do this would be 2 weeks. As I said, if they wanted to, they could just shrink it down to 1 day. It just, for them, I think they might have a public relations problem if they did it all in 1 day. So I would anticipate they would just do it as quickly as possible under the regular rules, which is about 4 days in each chamber. So you probably have like a Monday through Thursday, say in the House, then maybe people go away for the weekend. Then you probably have a Monday through Thursday in the Senate.
Okay, I'm just gonna pivot into something, just our efforts now with this. So how can we best support both of you in this fight? This, I know that maybe it does look like just forming networks around the state, but what can we do? Because it just feels like a train wreck, right? Or like the train's coming. So what are your thoughts?
Shellie, you want to take a shot at that?
It definitely feels like a train wreck, even in the State House. We benefit hearing from you. We were able to defeat that 167, and I know even though 1134 is horrendous, I think they think that it's better, and that is all due to the testimony and the emails and the calls. But those long days, the testimony, I mean, it does get, because it requires the author of the bill to respond. It requires them to defend what they're doing. And on the Senate side, it got them into trouble. And that's what we need from you. It's what you're doing, it's what you're good at, and that's what we need going through the next 4 weeks, and certainly gearing up to this summer, which could be the access to reproductive justice throughout Indiana could come to a screeching halt. So we'll definitely need it then, but we need it now, and we need your presence. And for the most part, wear your mask, come. I will tell you, I don't think on the Senate side, I don't believe, other than the Democrat senators, no one, and the Democrat staff, no one else is wearing a mask, just FYI. So if you have a immune system, then maybe email or call. But I don't know, Matt. I think it's been effective to call everybody, leadership, chairs of these committees that put these bills on the agenda, even if they're not in your district or represent you, call them, email them. I think I heard that I personally received 500 plus emails against 167, and the ISTA, the teachers union, said overall, I think they had, it was over 34,000 emails that they received in opposition to both 167 and 1134. So it's working, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, assuming we have this special session this summer, so this is worst case scenario, and the only bill they're handling is this bill to roll back reproductive rights. I think you have to give them the sense that they're kicking a giant hornet's nest. So maybe they will think twice about it. And I think in this case, something this monumental, you would have to be filling up the State House. I mean, you literally have to have thousands of people show up and all be there, you know, peacefully and respectfully, but loudly protesting, and do that side. And as Shellie had said, you know, just the grassroots communication with legislators. Now, on the House side, I think, and maybe the Senate is a little bit different, but on the House side, the members are most swayed by people actually who live in their districts, who could theoretically vote for them. So, you know, for example, if you have a really conservative member from some rural part of Indiana and he gets 100 emails from Bloomington, I don't think it'll be very persuasive on him. But if he's got some emails from people in his own district, I think that would be. And then, of course, leadership, hearing from people around the state, because theoretically leadership's got to be thinking about, you know, the impact of these bills on their membership as a whole. And so I think that's, you know, figure out, you know, who your allies are, like Shellie and I, and then you don't have to use a lot of your energy on you know, communicating with us, because you know that we're going to be in there fighting for you. So then the question is, how do you take your resources and focus that maybe on leadership, and then figuring out how to, you know, network with other chapters, your friends and relatives, to get them emailing from around the state. And then the other thing too is, I think that if you can begin applying some pressure to corporations. You know, it's interesting because last year we had this voter suppression provision that came over from the Senate, and it looked like it was going to move. And the interesting thing is both Eli Lilly and Cummins came and testified against the bill. And then I think the other thing that happened is, you know, down in Georgia, because of all their voter suppression legislation, Major League Baseball moved their all-star game out of Atlanta. And I think that freaked out the Indianapolis, you know, hospitality people, because we have all these football games and national sports events in Indianapolis. And I think they told the legislature, look, don't pass this crazy voter suppression stuff, because it's going to get us on some list and we're going to end up losing business. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, abortion is such a polarizing issue in a lot of ways that I don't know if the corporations would be willing to weigh into that. But if they would, you know, sometimes they whisper in the ears, because, you know, in the background to people, and they're not out front. Because the Republicans, to win, they need two things. They need this crazy kind of Trump base of their party to show up and vote for them. And they need money to run their campaigns. The corporations provide the money, which in exchange for that, they get tax breaks and low regulation. And then that money is used to gin up, send mail to the, you know, to the crazy Republicans, so they can get through their primaries and get reelected. And so if there were a way to get the corporations, even if they're not willing to come and vocally be against the bill, to at least, you know, make some phone calls in the background and say, look, you're going to, you know, create some problems for us in recruiting people, which is another issue that I think business raises sometimes. We don't have enough skilled workers in Indiana for these new tech jobs. And so they have to go out and they have to recruit where the tech workers are. So if they have to go to California or New York, you know, places on the coast to get workers, you know, if they think we're, you know, some crazy state where, you know, we have to give the positive side of Nazis along with the truth about Nazis, you're not going to get your workers in here. So that's another thing that I think corporations might worry about, is if we just become known as this kind of crazy conservative state, that may not help them recruit workers from other more progressive areas.
Yeah, I know those are real. Oh, sorry, Shellie, go ahead.
I wanted to add something, an approach that I have wondered would be effective, and that is begin to contact the Chamber of Commerce, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, and even local chambers of commerce. Look at their membership and begin applying pressure. Say, if you are supportive of reproductive justice, say you will take away your membership. And then if you're not, you can say, here are your members, and we will, this is cancel culture here, but we will boycott these members. We will not stand by and let you be quiet on this. The fact that they come to Education Committee and advocate on bills that they have no business advocating. You know, they come and, I mean, I could go on and on about this, but they remain silent on 167. They remain silent on the residential in-state tuition.
Right.
That is where we can say, we won't let you be silent anymore, and we're going to hold you accountable. Instead of going corporation by corporation, let them know, just go right straight to the Indiana Chamber and put down their membership and say, if you're not representing them, we can't give them our support, and put some pressure on them to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Iris, do you have a question? I know you had your hand up for a while,
The
so.
question was, what house does if this legislation should come to pass, what house does it have to start at, the Senate or House? Or does it make a difference?
It can start on either side. It seems like in past sessions where we've done stuff, things tend to start in the House first. I don't know why, but under the rules for this particular bill, it could start in the Senate.
Okay, I just thought maybe we ought to pay attention to both chambers so that we know if it comes there, who we're going to have to get at. Thank you. Thank you both.
Before we switch to our VP, Shruti Rana, does anybody have any questions? Throw it out to the audience for Senator Yoder and Representative Pierce. You know, feel free to like raise your hand, or if anyone caught them from the chat. I was like engrossed in all this, like taking my notes in my little notebook and stuff about what we have to do next. Yes, go ahead.
I had a question just following up on what might happen, this summer with reproductive justice. And I was wondering, building upon what happened with RFRA and what you were saying about putting pressure on corporations, how effective, or do you think it would be effective to reach women in out-of-state corporations, and get them to say things like they're not coming to Indiana if there's a restrictive bill in place, right? I mean, it would be dangerous to send their female employees or anyone who could be pregnant to Indiana. And I feel like you could ask the corporations themselves to say something, and if not them, like the many employees of all these corporations who are women, or or at least people who support reproductive rights.
Yeah,
Or you could come at this, sure, that's great, because you could say, because we hear this from our recruiters at Kelly. Kelly, if you don't step up and address your students being able to speak to DEIJ issues and lead with those issues, we will stop recruiting from your school.
Yep.
And so why don't we say, get these out-of-state leaders, CEOs to say, oh, pass it, Indiana, because we cannot wait to recruit those best and brightest out of your state to come to our state, where we welcome them with open arms. I mean, that should frighten. If we lose all of our young people, we're already looking at, I was hearing some pretty startling statistics about sort of Indiana's demographic, in 20 years, 40 years. We need our young to stay here, and that will be one way of getting them to flee.
Yeah, clearly what happened with RFRA is you had, big name national CEOs kind of speaking out against that because they knew it was a vehicle to discriminate against the LGBTQ community. And so that got the attention of people. And then we started becoming the butt of jokes on Saturday Night Live and other places. And then Pence had that disastrous interview on the Sunday morning show. And that caused the leadership of the legislature to decide, okay, we just got to reverse engines here and kind of stop the bleeding. So I would agree that, if you were able to get some national CEOs to say, look, this is the issue. I think the other thing we have to keep in mind, though, is this is probably going to be a national thing. So I think you're probably going to have every, southern state, just think about all the states that are kind of on the crazy conservative list. Kind of like look for places where they're actively fighting public health on COVID. Those places will probably simultaneously be passing similar legislation. And so these CEOs are going to be operating in an environment which there are multiple states, I think, doing this all at the same time. In fact, I bet there'll be some kind of race to see, can Arkansas do it before Texas? Can Florida do it before Alabama? And I think that's the kind of world you'll be in if this does come to pass.
Destiny Wells, our candidate for Secretary of State, is here, and I think she has a question.
Hi, thank you both for being here and allowing me to be here. My question is really from a perspective that I'm not sure a lot of people have noticed. I have a military background, and so the GOP leadership often likes to tout their relationships with places like Atterbury and Muscatatuck and other federal facilities. And I know that in Texas, it's been a big point to think about women who serve in the military who are not able to seek these services within the confines of a federal installation because of limitations by law. And so there are HIPAA concerns, there are leave concerns for people serving. And so I just kind of wanted to throw it out there as another attacking point, because we do like to pride ourselves on our partnerships with the federal government, but we are severely limiting the women that will want to come here to the state of Indiana, just like other states that are enacting such prohibitive abortion laws.
Very well said. Thank you, Destiny. I think that that's a super important thing that we have to keep remembering and as we fight and keep going with this. Maquiba, I'm like, I can read your question, or you can unmute yourself and say it. Amazing leader Maquiba Reese is here with us tonight.
Hey everybody, thanks for letting people talk and have some space. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. I'm not necessarily depressed about hearing this because it's so common in my ancestral background. So I'm not really like down. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's organize. Let's figure it out. That's how we always do. I appreciate my ancestors. They have fighting power. And so it's just not new. And so I appreciate both Matt and Shellie fighting on the floor. I guess I had a couple of thoughts. My first one is, I love that we keep bringing up this idea of reproductive rights, and of course, RBG, rest in peace. We have something really huge on the table, right? Biden has a short list. His short list is full of Black women for the Supreme Court justice, and I think that that's something that we also need to really pay attention to, because I get really saddened of watching how we rallied for RBG, but we're not rallying for these phenomenal women one of the phenomenal women that will take up space in that Supreme Justice. And so my question is, what bills are on the floor from the Democratic Party that we should be paying attention to outside of the bills that are against majority people? So I'm just curious about what bills we should already be paying attention to, so that we can perhaps, and when I say we, I don't want to speak on behalf of the NAACP, but I am a VP, a vice president over there for social action. And I'm just curious if once we rally up a group of people to come and join and make a little bit of noise in the State House, how can we shine light on bills that we do appreciate and that's more on the floor, as well as those that we oppose? Because I think that helps to set the tone when we go to and voice our opinions. I think not only should we say what we're rallying against, but what are we like appreciating and saying, yes, this values my life.
Well, Matt,
Yeah.
I do have this real quickly. The governor said, if we're going to end the public health emergency in Indiana, I need 4 things to happen. And both the House and the Senate had comparable bills, although the House had some anti-vax language attached and the Senate didn't. And so the Senate bill was good. However, at the last minute, they took out the SNAP benefits, linking the SNAP benefit to the federal, mirroring the federal schedule, or if the, whatever the federal government does, as long as the federal government extends the public health emergency, then the SNAP emergency allotment will stay in place. No, Indiana said, we're not going to feed children. We're not going to supply SNAP benefits for Indiana families. We're going to end that here in Indiana. So they apply SNAP benefits to the federal public health emergency. Pretty outrageous. So while I was hopeful because I thought I could give you something positive, that was a true disappointment. Matt, what do you have coming from your side?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very good, but Shellie pointed out the important one is, the Senate bill, which just essentially says, hey, we'll give agencies the ability to keep these special COVID benefits going, even if there's no official declared emergency by the governor. I mean, that's all fine. That's kind of Republican politics. They just don't like the governor every month renewing his emergency order. But the House does have this thing that basically will make it impossible for any employer who decides he wants his or her employees vaccinated. Because it essentially says that there are like 4 reasons why you could be excused from having to get vaccinated. And then it says the business cannot inquire whatsoever about whether your objection is legitimate or heartfelt or sincere. So you can just say, I have a religious objection, period. And then they're done. They have to accept that and you're not vaccinated. So getting that out of the bill when it goes through the Senate and getting it down to that core thing. I mean, the good news is the House does have the SNAP benefits in it as one of those 4 prongs of things that would keep going. So you can fight to keep that prong into the House bill. Mm-hmm. And so that would be a positive thing. Really the only positive things I see happening at the State House right now is, and I think it might be getting ready to turn for the worse, but really for the last decade, Indiana surprisingly has been fairly progressive on criminal code reform. So we got rid of mandatory minimum sentences and said we wanted to get more to treatment and not incarceration. And it's been slow and kind of herky-jerky, but we've actually done some fairly good stuff there. And there's going to be a juvenile justice bill coming over to the Senate, which really makes it much less likely that juveniles will be actually incarcerated, that instead they'll be put in these community-based programs to actually, treat probably mental health and drug issues that are causing them to get ensnared in the criminal justice system. And so that's pretty good. And then there's another bill that I think we'll see. It's going to be on 3rd reading on Monday. We'll see if it makes it out of the House. But it's another bill that would essentially say that for people who are sentenced and serving prison time before the criminal code reform, if they've served they would be the ones with the mandatory minimum 20-year sentences for 3 grams of cocaine. They would, if they served basically 75% of the sentence under the new, more lenient code, they would be able to, petition to get out on parole. And that's another, I think, important bill for, just justice in general. The problem is, my sense is over in the Senate, they've already gone crazy in turn. They're really trying to, the Marion County people are trying to keep people, who can't afford bail incarcerated, and they've got all these things in the name of fighting violent crime. So I don't know how those bills will be received in the Senate. That's something that, if you cared about those issues, you could see what you could do to kind of push that along.
I would also add that a couple of good things. Both Senator Codora and I worked on similar bills, and so we just combined efforts, and we successfully got out of the House or Senate today. So it's heading your way. It's just a proposal for a summer study to look at childcare, the way that we can better serve our youngest of the young in our childcare and daycare deserts and find a way to address accessibility and affordability throughout Indiana. So that passed the Senate today. And then we got a hearing, and hopefully it will pass out of the Senate, but a bill that establishes some housing rights for renters. And so we'll see some basic livability kinds of things. So we'll see if we can get that out of the Senate on Monday.
Well, I think that's kind of a hopeful note, but that we have a lot of work ahead of us. And really the only way to change things is to elect different people, right? Like that's really the only way to make this not feel like, you know, a train is coming year after year.
Yeah, let me, if you can, because I know you probably have to get on your next agenda, but let me just throw that out, because that's a very good point. In the end, we just have to win more seats. And we don't necessarily have to take the majority, although I dream of that day when we're in control and we can set the agenda and actually have a, you know, a justice agenda to work on. But, you know, even if we could win enough more seats to be able to break the quorum, which means we could leave the chamber and cause everything to stop and force them to maybe have to negotiate with us, that would be such a game changer. And so, you know, you're absolutely right. We need to work really hard on getting more senators and more Democratic representatives up there. And in the House, we have a super highly competitive seat in our backyard. So this new open seat, because Jeff Ellington moved to Greene County and declared himself a resident over there, this seat that goes from, you know, basically has rural Monroe County around the city, goes over, takes in all Brown County and a little bit of Jackson County. That seat is about 50-50 Democrat Republican. And so if we can really get organized in that seat and really push and get our turnout up and do stuff, we have an excellent opportunity to have, you know, another Democratic representative from our area. And that would help, you know, add one more Democrat to the caucus and get us toward that magic number we need to be able to break the quorum. So as you're thinking about, you know, what races and where you want to focus your energy, please don't forget that race. Whoever the nominee ends up being, I think there are a couple people in that race right now. But, you know, the important thing is for us to win that seat, because that one is excellent.
I think that is super important, that especially all the Monroe County people have to look at shifting, right? It's like I'm one of your constituents, like directly, but it's like I have to look at maybe Fort Wayne, you know, that race, the 62 race, Fort Wayne, maybe, you know, like all these different. I know we have some candidates here from the South, just all around the state. Julie Storbeck had a question. How many seats do we need to break the supermajority in the House and then the Senate? Do we know that?
Right.
If not, we can follow up later and get that.
Yeah, you have to. So the majority party, to have a quorum to operate, you have to have 2/3 of the members in the House floor. And so that's 67 out of 100. So, you know, we would need to get up to 34. But the truth is, you probably need 36, because 2 people have to stay behind and object. There's not a quorum, to make sure they just don't ignore the rule and keep going. So I think that in the House, 36 is the minimum number, and we're at 29 now.
Okay, so we're at 29 and we need 36 at least.
Yeah,
We need at least 36.
I think 36 is the magic thing, because you could have 34 people leave, which would take them down to 66, which is not enough, and still have 2 people that could stay behind and say, hey, you know, you can't do anything because you don't have a quorum.
Okay, so as we look to statewide organizing, this has to be part of that equation also, is not only fighting for this, but also how do we get to 36?
Right, and you'll probably, I mean, you'll be able to figure this out as we get more into the election season, but we got this 50-50 district right here in Monroe County. So that's like an easy one. It's right here. We don't have to road trip to help on that. And then there in the House, there's some other open seats. I think there's maybe one in Indianapolis, and I think you mentioned Fort Wayne. So there are a couple pockets of places where, because of population shifts, they couldn't really quite gerrymander it the way they wanted to. And so those are the seats that will probably get a lot of the focus. And then we've got a couple incumbents who, you know, their districts got a little closer. So we'll also have to keep an eye on those to make sure we don't lose any of the 29 we have now.
How about you, I know the Senate's harder, Shellie, because like it's so much more lopsided. Is there, what's the path there?
We have 11 out of 50, and I think we have to get 18. So that's a lot. But we're gonna lose Senator Lannon, and that seat was actually he and another senator who is a Republican. Those two districts were drawn together, so we're losing that. However, a new district was drawn in that area, and former Representative Melanie Wright is running, and she's very well respected. I had it was a dinner on Thursday night, and was talking to the husband of a Republican senator, and he said, I'm telling everybody to support her, because he had all of his reasons, and he he's been around a long time, but he is very he's from that area and has a lot of respect for Melanie Wright. So my fingers are crossed that maybe we can gain that one, and that would be helpful. But we do have a ways to go in the Senate.
Okay, maybe that's a next couple follow-up meetings from now. How do we best organize to get to 29 or to get to 36 and get to 18? Right? It's like, at least we're not getting to 30, like we're in the same kind of area. But thank you both so much, not only for joining us tonight and, spending dinner time with us, but for all you do day after day. We're watching and we see, and we're so proud of the work that you're doing for us, here in Monroe County and the whole state. So thank you so much for joining us today. If there's anything you want to mention on the way, that's great. And then we'll turn it over to Shruti to give us a recap on what's ahead for the Supreme Court.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Shruti to talk about the Supreme Court and any cases to watch that we should be. It should be on our radar.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, and also thank you to our representatives. That was just really important and depressing and a little bit inspiring also. Natalia asked me to say a little bit about this really exciting development at the Supreme Court with Justice Breyer announcing that he was going to retire. So that means we'll have a new justice very, very soon. So just in terms of talking about the impact, there's this quote from this morning I saw in the paper. It was Ruth Marcus in the Washington Post. She said, "Whoever the new justice will be, she will make a difference, and also not much difference at all." And I think, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I think that's true. In the sense of voting, we have a 6-3 conservative majority that is pretty impenetrable. So replacing Justice Breyer, who was, generally moderate, with someone much stronger will still only mean 3 votes out of 9. And, there's very, in terms of there's very little chance for that justice to be able to vote in the majority. Also, the conservative majority that we have now is ultra conservative and ultra right wing. I wouldn't even call them conservative. They're far beyond that. And they've evidenced so far a willingness to discard precedent, rule of law, common sense, the Constitution, all sorts of things. And there's nothing really holding them back, just maybe time and how open they're willing to be about what they're doing. But I think they've also made it quite clear that they have this agenda of rolling back rights, as far as possible, definitely beyond, the civil rights era, back before Brown versus Board of Education and things like that. And also sort of ensconcing sort of, religious theology based rule, right? So they've made no secret of that. They've been kind of implementing these things as cases come up. So that's where the new justice is not going to be able to make a difference, at least until 2 more people retire or are replaced. where the justice could make a difference, I think, is this power of symbolism and history. So President Biden has promised to nominate a Black woman. I think that's going to be tremendously exciting. All but I think 6 or 7 Supreme Court justices in the entirety of U.S. history have been white men. I think right now, Justice Sotomayor is the only woman of color on the Supreme Court. I think this is tremendously important for symbolism and history. And I think it goes beyond that, right? So first we have like, what does it mean to see someone on the highest court in our entire country who looks like you or who looks like the future of America, and to see someone who's actually fighting for justice and not just against it. I think that's incredibly important. And I want to echo a little bit of what Maquiba said also, that when, Biden is going to choose a Black woman with progressive policies and viewpoints, or at least very much more progressive than the existing, 6 majority justices on the Supreme Court. And that person will know how to fight and will know what the stakes are and will be able to bring the lived experience of knowing what it takes to struggle and overcome all of these things that we've been able to overcome in the past, or the hurdles that remain. And I think that's really, really important. If we look now at the Supreme Court as it stands right now, Justice Sotomayor has been, on fire, right? She's been issuing these brilliant dissents that I think are incredibly inspiring. And the things that she says and puts into Supreme Court, decisions or dissents that are going into our history books and going into, the record of what our Supreme Court does. It's some of the first times that you'll see language like the words justice being used, that you'll see that she recognizes what it means to be a person of color in the United States, what it means to be marginalized. And that's actually been tremendously transformative, right? If you think about, I think about when I was in law school, it wasn't that long ago. And, the opinions and dissents are pretty dry, even for the most, some of the issues with the highest stakes. And I don't remember, hardly ever reading these kinds of dissents that are coming out of Justice Sotomayor right now, right? So I think I just want to echo what lots of people have said, that Justice Sotomayor is actually what the public view of Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, right? Justice Sotomayor is actually the person saying all of those things. So how does that change the game? I think that it really does. I think Sotomayor recognizes that she has a platform that really is unparalleled, even if her decisions are not in the majority, right? I think what she's told us, you talked about Supreme Court cases to watch. I agree with the people who are saying that Justice Sotomayor is telling us that Roe is already dead and the justices have voted to overrule it. If you traditionally, what happens in most appellate courts and the Supreme Court is that after the oral arguments, the justices take an informal vote on where they're going to land, and then they assign a particular justice the opinion to write, and they assign someone who voted in the majority, right? So people are sort of reading between the lines and saying that she knows that the justices, after the hearing in the Mississippi v. Dobbs case, voted to overrule Roe. And she's just telling us in all these dissents that are coming out, the one that came out a couple of days ago, where the Supreme Court refused to stop the Texas case and allowed it to, continue to stay into effect, right? She was just saying, how rare it was for a court to eviscerate a constitutional right, and that we needed to understand what that meant, right? So I do think she's just trying to send a warning shot of, across the bow. In terms of, so I just want to say how incredibly exciting I think this is. And, I think that Black women and women of color and people, in part of the civil rights movements and other movements in this country have shown us that you can take something symbolic and you can take rhetoric and you can turn it into something concrete. And I think this next justice will show us how far we can go with that, right? And how much can be done. And, I just think about I bought my daughter the books on Justice Sotomayor's life, right? And the children's books where she talks about why she does what she does. And you never know what difference that can make for someone, right? That just having the person up there could light a fire under somebody else or inspire someone to do something. And so so when you see people saying what I just started off saying, right? I read that quote saying it's going to make a difference, but not much difference at all. We know that we can't make very much difference in terms of the actual votes right now, but the difference that we can make with all sorts of other things, history, symbolism, rhetoric, like inspiring people, could be tremendous. And I think we need to remember that. And so just to echo Maquiba again, I think that means we have a chance to rally around whoever this woman is. We know she's going to be someone amazing. All the people discussed on the short list are so tremendously qualified. And honestly, the bar is low in terms of like the existing, at least 6 of the justices on the Supreme Court, or at least some of them on the Supreme Court, right? Right now. And so all of the people being talked about are brilliant, have tremendous accomplishments, careers, are incredibly strong people. And so we know it's going to be someone amazing. And I think one of the things that we can do is rally around that person. We're already seeing, we don't even know who that person is. And right now we're already seeing all sorts of pushback and people talking about how there's no woman who could be qualified and all these things like that, right? And we can fight back in terms of dialogue, media, all sorts of things, and support whoever this person is, because there's no doubt, as I said, that it's going to be someone amazing. In terms of things coming down the pike, so I think that I think we still have a chance to make a difference. I think it's very, very likely that Roe is going to be overturned, and we just don't know how bad it's going to be, right? We don't know how far the Supreme Court will do. Will they just overturn the viability standard in Roe, which is what the parties in the Dobbs, Mississippi case were asking them to do? Or are they going to erode the rules we have around precedent? They've said they want to do that. Are they going to erode, personal and bodily autonomy beyond Roe? Are they going to overturn whole women's health? I think the answer is yes, right? I've talked before about how whole women's health is the case that allows us to bring evidence. It tells legislators if they're going to say something is in a woman's best interest or in anyone's best interest, they have to show evidence and facts to back it up, which allows you to stop a lot of bad bills and affects voting, public health, all sorts of other things. Are they going to overturn that, right? All of these things are going to have profound implications. So I think the chance that we have right now is, I think that the court's decision on the Texas case was a trial balloon, right? It was to see whether people would care if Roe was overruled and if abortion was banned. And the answer is, I don't think that many people made that big of a fuss, right? When the Texas bill went into effect, it was women's rights advocates and, outspoken women saying something about it, but the vast majority of the country sort of shrugged, right? And I don't think they were shrugging because they don't care. I think they were shrugging because a lot of people in America just can't believe that their rights are going to be taken away, right? They refuse to believe it. I talked to so many people after the first Texas decision, and they would just say, oh, well, I'm sure the appeals court is going to overturn it and, whatever, and it's just a matter of time. And, none of that made any difference, right? We're beyond the point where that can make any difference. And so we need people to recognize that this is the point that we're at, that Roe has already been effectively overruled. Whatever the Supreme Court does, they already let this Texas law go into effect, even if the court does nothing, which they won't. We know they're coming out with the decision by June. Indiana and other states can file copycat bills for Texas, right? So what I think Justice Sotomayor is trying to do, and what I think that we should do, is if we can, the more pressure we put on the justices and public pressure to show how important reproductive rights are and how upset and how devastating it is going to be for people when they are rolled back, the more likely it is that the court's decision will be narrower rather than broader, right? They're going to do whatever they think they can get away with. And it's to our benefit that this is an election year, right? They don't want to be, they don't want to do exactly what we're hoping Destiny will do in her campaign, right? Fire up women and people who support, reproductive rights and, just rights in general, and get them out there to vote. And so, I think they're just testing the waters to see how far they can get. And the more that we can do now, the more public statements, pressure, all of it that we can do now, the more likely that bill is to be narrow, but also, again, the better that we can set the stage for the future. So the last thing I was going to say about the Supreme Court justice is, even being in the minority, you can set out roadmaps in your dissents for how the law is supposed to be and how rights are supposed to be enforced and are protected. And that's what Ruth Bader Ginsburg did for a long time, because she was in the majority. And it was only the last couple of years of her tenure on the Supreme Court that she was able to be in the majority, and she still accomplished so much, right, in terms of changing the law. So those are, I'm trying to be a little bit positive and think about the things that we can do. I think I've seen a couple of the possible nominees. I see that there was a question for me. So I guess, yeah, so we have some incredible names out there, Judges Jackson, Kruger, Childs. Are there concerns about obstruction during the confirmation process from the right wing, including the GOP and or Manchin and Sinema? I think yes. I think people are going to use this for posturing. They're going to say terrible things. They're going to call the nominee unqualified. They're going to say, you know, all sorts of things. They're going to say all the things we've seen, you know, with the critical race theory bills and things like that. They're going to be disgusting. They're going to be gross, and we have to fight back. And I think there's no question about that. Whether they can actually stop the whoever is nominated, I don't actually know. I think that Biden is going to choose someone where he thinks he can get at least 51 votes. And I don't know. I don't know that this is the fight that Sinema and Manchin want to take. And even if they do, there's a possibility of getting one or two judges one or two votes from Republicans. And remember, that's in part because it's the 6-3 court, and this justice isn't going to change anything. So it's easy for a Republican to like gain some points by voting for whoever the nominee is. So I don't think there's really potential to stop it unless something like some Kavanaugh type thing comes up, right? There's always a chance for some last minute scandal or something like that to blow up. But I'm saying that now because I'm relatively optimistic. So, you know, but I've no doubt that the hearings are going to be bloody and awful. But I think the nominee will prevail. So hopefully I answered all the questions. Let me see if there's other things in the
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much. At least we know what's ahead of us, right? It's like it's important to be positive, but also realistic, just so that we can best strategize. I mean, not just with this, but you know what was said earlier tonight too. We have to be realistic, but keep our spirit and you know, not let us get too down. So we keep on fighting. But I just want to say thank you, Susie. That was amazing. Thank you to our representative Pierce and Senator Yoder. I just want to quickly mention a National Now. We're part of the Eastern District, and I put it in the chat, or I put it in the agenda. But if anybody's interested, we have our Eastern District Now meeting on Monday night at 7. You can register online. There's a Feminist Public Square Book Club also on the 9th that National Now is doing. And then to save the date for our next our next general meeting in February, Thursday, February 24th at 7:30. We'll be announcing our speakers soon on social media. But thank you everyone for coming and joining us, and hopefully joining this fight, because we have a long 2022 ahead of us. So thank you so much. Have a great night.